tackles, no missed tackles a game.
Happy,
It's what you expect, isn't it? 8 metres per carry and 95% tackle success rate. That's what the
yeah.
lad does. That's what he's done for the last 9 years. That's what that I've been tracking the stats. That's what he'll keep doing.
I wish he wasn't such a nice guy. I'd like to hate him.
Well, we've got a magic man of your own that I wish I could hate and definitely can't as well. To talk about in a bit. Tim Laffey pops up again. Centre Tim Laffey will remain with the Salford Red Devils until the end of 2023 after the Super League club took a 1-year extension option. That's good business for them, isn't it? Because he's flashed with some brilliant stuff this year.
Yeah, been very good.
I wonder if he'll get to use that ban as well in the Combies game. I can't remember who was in the initial Combies squad, but if he was, that's that ban written off, which is good for him. And then Wigan props Liam Byrne and Ethan Havard have signed new contracts. Byrne, who's 22, has made 14 Super League appearances this season. He signed a new 3-year deal, whereas Havard, who's 20, has signed a new 2-year contract to keep him at the club until the end of the 2024 campaign.
Very good. Are you happy with that?
Very happy with that. Liam Byrne, I mean, we always notice more at our own clubs, don't we? But from what I've watched this year, Liam Byrne is the most improved player in Super League compared to what I've seen of him in the last year or two. You know, you talk a bit about Dan Norman at Saints being a guy who's got size, got potential, but is he really showing it yet? Liam Byrne was that for me at Wigan. And, you know, other clubs you'll hear about, they'll say, well, that player's always got an error in him. He always had an error in him. He's cut that out. Is a lot better this year. And then Ethan Havard, I think, is as good a young prop forward as we've got in our country, really. So is as good as what I've seen come through Wigan. I mean, his numbers again this week were high. It's every week that he's getting over 100 metres. It wasn't quite on the stats line roundup, but I think he got 120 metres in this one as well. Ethan Havard's fantastic. So I'm really pleased with that, yeah.
Good.
Let's move on to Saturday afternoon's action in the south of France, where it was another comfortable win for the favourite side in the top 4 of the table, and it was Catalans 36, Hull FC 8. It was 20-0 at half-time, so the game was done at that point, despite Catalans being a man down for 10 minutes around the half-time interval. 8,847, quite a lot of Hull FC fans in that, so well done to them. Jack Smith was the referee. In terms of the team stats, Hull fell below 1,000 metres and 90% team tackle success rate, so guess what, guys, you're going to get battered. You did. Catalans made nearly 200 more metres at 1.3 metres per carry better average gain, 4 more breaks and 4.1% better team tackle success rate too, so solid convincing win by Catalans.
Very convincing, yeah. For the winners, the aforementioned Tom Davies was 109 metres, Ben Garcia 107 metres and Dylan Napper 104. For the losers, Josh Griffin 1 try and 109 metres.
The first of the fan view is 60s Black and White, who just says terrible halfbacks.
Alan Walker says don't know why, but Hull rested the first team and sent out the nets. I suppose the kids need experience in the sunshine. Drinks breaks were needed throughout the match for welfare reasons. Given the low quality of the game, the drinks needed stiffening up. Nice one, Alan. We didn't do much, and they couldn't do much, especially with maybe 12 men. It seemed Benny G played well. On days like this, you want a Zodiac pool, refreshing and cool.
B. Dawson 1902 said, no desire, no discipline, no idea and no chance without Connor. That was the most pathetic display we put in all season. From start to finish we were second best. Starting with a spine of Shaw, Reynolds, Gale and Houghton just proved I'm not the only one who is wishing it was 2016 again at least. Our season is basically over, so Lytton, Hookham, Walker and Bolmforth need to be given their chances now.
Coming up road.
Is the season over? They're still fifth, aren't they? And I know we'll talk a bit more about Connor being out for 3 months in a sec, but...
Well, let's put it this way. I think they have to start playing a hell of a lot better than they did this weekend.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the season is over. They've got to find a way to play better through the pivots without Connor.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if they don't, they can't compete.
I agree with that. I just think it's a bit reactionary from Hull FC fans, although I totally understand the sentiment and feeling.
Yeah.
But it's a bit reactionary to say the season's over when they're in 5th place.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Fair point.
good contribution though.
Coming up roses, classic Radders FC performance, clueless, and they're now coming few and far between. The Grubbengale could even organise a fire in a match factory. That's a good one. Catalan clearly a step above, but when you're playing with the big frogs, you need to step up.
Mark W said, I know Loverdo isn't a proper half, but from what I've seen of him, he's a far better option than Gailey in the Grub. So the fact that he was stuck sitting on the bench, waiting for Kane Evans to get tired, was baffling to me as a neutral. I don't think Hull would have won with him at half-back, but they'd at least put up much more of a fight. Also, with Davies and Yaha, I don't see how Johnston gets into this Catalans team.
Matt Speakman, good bounce back from Cats, especially Yaha's try, which was very good, which was lovely. Sam's players making me excited for the World Cup. Calm down, Matt. Hull continue the Jekyll and Hyde routine from the last few years. It's a difficult place to go and win, but they should have had the 2 points from last week to take the pressure off. Let's hope this isn't the last time FC are burned by the French this month.
We've got a few other late views in that aren't on your script or on mine from Hull FC fans, so thanks to those guys for those. Esther said, it was either too hot or we was rubbish. No one played well. Jack Brown, the best of a bad bunch. Luke Gale needs to own up to his rubbish passes and not blame everyone else. Yeah, he did that again, didn't he? Threw a pass into touch and then threw his hands up like someone was supposed to be 10 foot tall. Stozza 1981 said, disgusting performance from FC. Granted, Cats are a tough opponent, but there was nothing FC offered. When a prop makes a break and is laughing throughout his run, you know how shit FC played. Gale's finished, Reynolds is finished, get Hookham and some other kids in. And Joshua's granddad said, when I couldn't do my job anymore, I retired. Surely the time has come for can't tackle Reynolds and can't pass, can't kick Gale to make the same choice, although they were far from the only ones underperforming.
Consistently, the Hull FC fans are very disappointed with the halfbacks. Reynolds is coming in and Gale coming in for a hell of a lot of stick, aren't they, Mark? And
I think it's easy to see why, because they aren't creating much, and it does pivot so much, doesn't it, on either the big forwards getting some offloads away or Jake Connor swinging around the back and creating something. What I would say is some criticism has to go into our correspondent Brett Hodgson. We might hear from him again about this, but basically he's lost his fullback and he's sent the team out to play exactly the same way with a totally different fullback. And he can't do what Connor does. He can't link the players well, Shaw can't. I'm not saying Shaw's a bad player. He's clearly not as good a player as Jake Connor, but he's not a bad player. He's shown that in 10 years in Super League. But what he is a runner. You know, he can scoot from dummy half, or he can support a player who's going to get an offload away. And he did set up a try, actually, I think, with a pass, didn't he, for one of the tries? So I'm not saying he can't do it, but it's not his go-to game. It should be a switch-up. He's expecting him to be the third pivot in a passing move, not your staple. And they kept running the same plays that they try and run with, even down to 12 men, when Catalans were down to 12 men when Garcia got sent off for Simbin, sorry. I thought they looked like, at that point, it just looked like it was even on the field. It didn't look like it was unequal. They just didn't create anything. I know they scored during that time, but that was through Griffin showing power, not through like them stripping Catalans for players and stuff, really. Yeah. I don't know. Look, there's some mitigation. They lost some players in the game, didn't they? They lost Swift and Tumabavi in the game. That's not ideal. But by that point, they were, which was the game up to the point where I pretty much watched the game, they were done for.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're in trouble, when you've lost your best player to injury, you really need to be able to fall back on very good structures and be able to play the basics well. And I think one of the problems for Hull is I'm not convinced that the defensive structures are good enough. So, because if your defensive structures are really, really good and your basic game plans are really, really good, then you can at least fall back on that.
Yeah,
and
you
be
keep the game close, don't you? And you
can
get
be
them to
competitive.
bounce of the ball or what have you. But this wasn't a bounce of a ball game. This was, yeah.
So they haven't got. I don't think they've got the basics right, and that then leaves them very vulnerable because they're not able to do the miracle stuff. And yeah, I mean they were out of this game, weren't they, early on? And they need to find a way to play without Connor. But I think Hodgson is a good coach. So now's the time to stand up and show it. You've got to find a way to do it without the snake.
Yeah, definitely. On the Catalans' perspective, they took their chances in the game, didn't they? Occasionally, they rode the luck. You look at the Gudemond try where it kind of just missed the fingertips. Did it, but that's what they said, and hit the knee instead, and then they managed to play on, and then they scored it. But they scored some nice tries as well. There was some good play from Tyrone May in the centres. Sam Tompkins, I think, is chiming in more. He's running the ball a bit more at the moment, it feels like. So it feels like he must be confident in his fitness again after that layoff he had earlier in the season.
Saw him stepping off both feet, which we haven't seen much of. So he must be very confident in his knee at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And you add into that the big men are doing decent jobs, and I think Catalans rolled on against an underwhelming Hull FC side, but the Catalans certainly did their job.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going down there to see Saints play them in a few weeks' time.
Okay, in terms of news stories off the back of this one, Josh Griffin got a grade A dangerous contact charge, so that's a one-match penalty notice for him, so he must have had some charges already in the last 12 months. I'll have to rethink my fantasy team because he's in that. Catalans back row Matt Whitley has signed a new 2-year deal. All the talk a few months ago was that he was coming back to the UK, wasn't it? So that's an interesting one that they managed to tie him down, but he's certainly been a consistent performer, isn't he? He doesn't let anyone down and can cover a few positions as well as just his normal back row spot, so he's a good player to have. And then the big news, Hull FC fullback Jake Connor will miss 10 to 12 weeks of the season after sustaining medial ligament injury. That was in that game against Wakefield that they lost on Golden Point, and we've already sort of talked about that they missed him. I saw a meme on the internet during the week that just said Hull FC out for 10 to 12 weeks. Which made me laugh. But we've talked quite a bit last year. Do you remember last year, even the stats? We talked about how his try involvements were massive, and like how many more points and tries they scored when he was playing versus when he wasn't playing. So it's back to that point you just made about they have to find a way to play without him, and it can't be try and get another player to be as good as him, because they don't have any other players as good as him this year.
That's exactly right. Interesting.
Tyrone May as well has signed a new 1-year deal with Catalans. That keeps him at the club until the end of next season. I don't really understand what happened with him leaving the Panthers and how that all properly came about, but it really has suited the Catalans to get in a quality utility player who can basically ably cover every position on the pitch. Literally, he can play everywhere, but centre's his best position. He's getting a bit of a spell there at the moment, and he's going well. And I think they'll be happy keeping him around another year because he's clearly fitted in well. Even if he's got a weird one of them weird what's it called, like urban samurai haircuts going on now, but can't have everything.
Yeah.
Right, this next game, I've watched the highlights, but like a few days ago and a few beers ago, and I really can't remember. But it's Toulouse versus Castleford. Castleford. And it was a close game. It was 6-all at half-time. Castleford won it late on, 20 points to 14. 3,326 is a worryingly low crowd. James Child was the referee. In terms of the team stats, Castleford overcame an 11-6 losing error count to make an extra break and slightly more metres. Made it a decent 1.9 metres per carry, a better average game, so when they did have the ball, they did better with it. Toulouse gave up twice as many penalties, 8-4, and had a sub 90% team tackle success rate, which isn't ideal most of the time. What about the individuals?
So for the winners, not surprisingly, Paul McShane, 3 try assists,